What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to show you a game-changing trick to 4xing your blackberry production. Let's go. So this is our blackberry bush. And this blackberry bush has been growing for us for about 5 years now. And the crazy thing is that this actually started from a seed that a bird dropped. We did not actually plant this here. I thought for the longest time it was a blackberry, but for about 3 years it never fruited. And eventually, one day, got the idea, after I threatened to pull it out, that it should start fruiting, and now it has never stopped. This thing has just continued to produce more and more fruit. And in this episode, I'm going to show you one thing that I've done that I actually learned from an actual blackberry, like a U-pick farm. I saw what they were doing. There's a U-pick farm about 20 miles from here, and I watched how they pruned their blackberries, and it really increased their production. It's just unbelievable how much more blackberries they're getting in comparison to typically what I see a lot of gardeners doing with their blackberries, which is just letting them grow. So these are brambles. Now, brambles are also known as caneberries because they grow on what's called a cane. Now, that cane can be broken down into two different classifications, a primal cane and a floral cane. Don't get it super confused, but basically most of your blackberries and raspberries are going to be floral cane, and that means they're summer bearing. Now, if they are a primal cane, that means that they are a fall-bearing variety as well. That means they can fruit up to 2 times a year. There's a couple different varieties of blackberries and raspberries that fall into that category, but for the most part, they're all going to fall into the floral cane category, meaning that they fruit on second-year growth. So all of this growth right here is the first-year growth. You can tell it's first-year growth because it is very green. It's lacking kind of a harder skin, and it's not flowering or fruiting. So what a lot of gardeners will do is they'll simply grow out their blackberry bushes, and they will simply let these canes grow and mature, and then next year they'll fruit on this growth because this is now going to be the second year, right? Next year will be the second year. So this will actually form kind of a woody growth here, but it will also form flowers in the spring, of which will turn into blackberries. These aren't ripe yet. These are still ripening. They'll start to ripen up like this, and they'll turn nice and black, and they're delicious. So the big mistake I see a lot of gardeners making, though, is not pruning properly. And there's a simple little tip. Like I said, I picked it up from a U-pick farm that had a bunch of blackberries. I looked in close to see what they were doing, and I noticed something. I noticed something that was being done on the first year growth, the first year it was growing, if that makes sense. If not, I'll explain further. So when I was walking in this blackberry patch, obviously me as a gardener, I just kind of pick up these things, right? I'm aware of my surroundings, and you should be as well. That's one of the best ways you could possibly learn is seeing what's working for people and then seeing what you're not doing and say, maybe I should kind of match what they're doing, right? And so what I noticed is that they didn't really have any super long canes like this. Now this cane is probably from the ground to the top, we're probably pushing like 8-9 feet, and this thing is crazy tall. There was never any canes that were that tall. They were all pretty kind of 4 to 5 foot range. And that struck me as surprising because when I looked at my plants, I said, my plants are just crazy tall. And they are starting to fruit, but they're not fruiting that much in comparison to the U-pick farm. Now, what I noticed is on the branches that had a ton of fruit, I noticed one little thing. It was small. It was subtle. If you wouldn't have looked at a couple branches, you might have just thought it was a coincidence, or like you would have passed it by, but it was cut. And I thought about it for a second. I thought, hang on a second. Blackberries are brambles. Brambles fruit on second year growth. That means that if I were to take my long cane during the peak growing season, I know from learned experiences, if I take this cane as it's growing, and there's still a lot of growing season left, what I can do is I can clip it, and what that's going to do is it's going to send energy to these little side shoots. And those side shoots are then going to grow this year. But what are they going to do next year? They're going to fruit. So here you can see this method in practice. You have the cane growing up. Okay, the cane originally was just as tall as the other one. And what we did last year is right around late July, early August, we came in and we clipped the stem. We clipped the end of the stem just as you saw me do to that one. And what that did was it forced all this side growth, all those little suckers. So you can actually come in here close, you can see this. Just like a tomato, just like a pepper, most plants, if you clip the main growth leader, it'll force side shoots. And so check it out, right in between this leaf node here, you have this little tuft of growth. Over here, you have a little tuft of growth right there. Over here, you got another little tuft of growth. And then right here, you got another little tuft of growth. And it goes up the whole way, up the cane. And so I only clipped off about 1.5 feet or so just to keep it low to the ground so it's still manageable, it's not too tall. But what it's gonna do is it's gonna force all that side growth. And that is what we did last year. Now check it out. Because we still had time left in the growing season, those little side shoots became growth points. They actually became, they were encouraged to grow. And because then they overwintered and they grew into their second year, they were encouraged to flower. And now we have fruit. We have fruit. We have fruit, more fruit, more fruit, more fruit, more fruit, more fruit, and more fruit. On one cane, we have probably what will be almost probably 1/4 to 1/2 pound of blackberries once they're fully ripe. And this thing is absolutely loaded. And you multiply that by how many canes are on this plant, it is absolutely insane how much fruit can be produced. Rather than just take a cane, let it grow and mature, this will produce fruit. But you're only gonna get a small little tuft of maybe 4 or 5 berries on this next year. Whereas you take about 1.5 feet, clip that off. Now it's going to produce 4-5x the amount of fruit. And this game-changing method is really what completely turned around my blackberry game and allowed me to grow some incredible, incredible blackberries. And that's all it is. All right, so coming close here, this is another example. As you can see, this was last year's growth. You can clearly see the cut right there. It's all scabbed over. It produced a lot of new growth. That new growth then fruited, 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 and fruited. It's unbelievable. I'll give you another example over here. Check this out, look at this. Look at this one. We clipped it back. We clipped it back right there. Produced all this new growth. Look at this, fruit, 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 fruit. Amazing. This is such a game-changing method. I think a lot of you not only will be able to benefit from this, but will be able to take your fruit production from what was like a 2 out of 10, and you'd be pretty content, maybe a 3 out of 10, to like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. With the right care, the right pruning, the right growing conditions, these plants, this is just 2 plants. We've actually propagated this plant. We have 2 plants growing here. It was originally just one that a bird dropped from flying by, and it sprouted, propagated that. With the right growing conditions, the right pruning methods, this is just an ordinary blackberry turned into a supernatural blackberry basically within a year. And so I'd highly encourage you guys to try this. It is such a game-changing method. And like I said, I just want to see you guys take your growing game to the next level. I want to see you guys grow more food in less space. And honestly, this is how you do that, is by working smarter, not harder. And so again, a lot of you ask where I learn these things, how I learn these tips. It's from books, it's from my own learning experiences, but it's from being a sponge, being out with other people, being around like-minded individuals that are far smarter than me and far better at growing food than I am. And I just happen to be in the right place at the right time, right? And so I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any other blackberry growing tips that I haven't mentioned, let me know in the comments box down below. I'd love to know what works for you because again, that's how I get smarter. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.